Over the last 10 years, you earned $780,000. That isn't a guess. That's what your tax returns say, added up. 10 years of W-2s, 10 years of direct deposits, every dollar accounted for on paper. Right now, this second, your total net worth is $31,000. So this video is about the other $749,000. Where it went. All of it. Line by line. Because here's the part that doesn't make sense. You didn't gamble it. You didn't lose it in a crash. You never had money in anything volatile enough to crash. You didn't buy anything anyone would call crazy. You paid your bills on time. You showed up to work. You did everything you were told to do. And it's gone anyway, almost all of it. That's not a personal failure. That's an accounting question. And accounting questions have answers, so we're going to find every dollar, level by level, until the number closes. Some of what we find is going to make you angry. Some of it is going to make you feel a little better about yourself. You are not going to like level 8. Level 8 is the reason this video exists. Everything before it has a receipt, a statement, a document you can hold. Level 8 has none of that, and it's $71,000. And one number near the end is going to be very hard to explain. We'll get there. Level 1, taxes, $187,000. The first number is the biggest, and it's the one you had the least say in. Federal income tax. State income tax. Social Security. Medicare. Across 10 years, those 4 lines took roughly $187,000. You never saw that money. It never touched your account. It was gone before the deposit landed. That's the first thing worth understanding about your $780,000. You never actually earned $780,000. Not in any usable sense. The number on your offer letter and the number that reaches you are 2 different numbers. Almost nobody plans around the second one. Everybody plans around the first. Your friend Jordan makes the same salary you do. He describes it the same way you do. Neither of you has ever once said the take-home number out loud. Only the gross one. That gap, repeated for 10 years, is the single largest line in this entire video. And there's almost nothing you could have done about it. That's not a comforting thought. But it does mean the real question was never about $780,000. It was always about the $593,000 that actually arrived. There is one thing you could have done, and almost nobody told you about it clearly. Your employer offered a retirement match for 8 of those 10 years. You enrolled in year 7. The 6 years before that, you left the match on the table. That's about $14,000 of free money you simply never claimed. Nobody explained it. There was a form. The form was confusing. You meant to get to it. That's the number this investigation is really about. Everything after this you touched. Level 2, rent, $164,000. You've lived in 4 different apartments over these 10 years. Never anything luxurious. You started at $850 a month. You're at $1,600 now. You never once chose an apartment because it was nice. You chose whatever you could afford. Added up across a decade, rent took $164,000. That is not money you spent. It's money you rented time with. At the end of it, you own exactly none of the 4 places that money went into. This is the part where somebody usually says you should have bought a house instead. Run that math honestly, and it's less obvious than it sounds. A down payment on anything in your area was around $40,000. You have never, at any single point in these 10 years, had $40,000 at once. So the advice wasn't wrong. It just wasn't available to you. There's a difference. Add it to the sheet. $164,000 gone into somebody else's asset, 2 lines in, and more than half the money is already accounted for. Neither line was a decision anyone would call reckless. That's the thing about this number. It didn't disappear in one dramatic moment. Your rent went up 7 times in 10 years. You never once got a letter explaining why. Each increase was small enough to absorb. None of them were small enough to ignore. Your income also went up in that period. It went up slower than the rent did. That gap, compounding quietly for a decade, is most of what people mean when they say things feel harder. It left in small, reasonable, completely ordinary amounts. Every month. For a decade. Level 3. The car, $91,000. You've owned 3 cars in 10 years. None of them expensive. All of them necessary. Payments, insurance, fuel, repairs, registration, and 1 transmission you'd rather not discuss. The total across the decade is $91,000. That number surprises almost everyone because nobody adds up all 6 categories at once. People think about the car payment. They don't think about the other 5 lines. The insurance alone was $19,000. You never filed a single claim. Fuel was $22,000. You never once looked at that as a single number before. That's the pattern here. Nothing hidden, just nothing ever added together. And unlike the rent, this one had choices inside it, real ones. The second car was nicer than it needed to be. You knew that when you bought it. It cost about $11,000 more than the sensible option over the years you owned it. $11,000 out of $749. That's the honest scale of it, which is worth remembering the next time somebody tells you your problem is discipline. You looked into taking the bus for a while. You actually ran the numbers on it properly. It would have saved around $4,000 a year and cost you 90 minutes a day. 90 minutes a day for 10 years is roughly 200 full days of your life. So you kept the car. That was not a stupid decision. It was a trade. Most of this sheet is trades. Very little of it is mistakes. Add it. 91,000, mostly for the ability to get to work at all. Level 4, food. $71,000. Groceries, lunches at work, coffee, and dinner out roughly twice a month. Nothing extravagant. You cook most nights. You've never had a food delivery habit. 10 years of eating comes to $71,000. That's about $590 a month, which is close to the national average. This is the line people love to attack. Skip the coffee. Pack a lunch. You've heard it. So let's actually test it. Your coffee habit across 10 years cost about $4,000. $4,000 against $749,000 missing. If you had never bought a single coffee in 10 years, the number barely moves. The coffee was never the problem. It was just the easiest thing to blame. There was a stretch in year 6 where you ate the same 4 meals on rotation for months. Not for health. Not for discipline. Because those 4 were the cheapest things that filled you up. You saved maybe $900 that year doing it. You remember every week of it. $900 of memory against $71,000 you barely noticed leaving. That ratio explains why people burn out on budgeting. The pain and the impact don't match. Add the line $71,000 to stay alive for 10 years. Level 5, insurance and healthcare, $63,000. Health insurance premiums taken from every paycheck for 10 straight years. Deductibles, co-pays, 2 emergency room visits, 1 procedure you're still paying off. $63,000 across the decade. You have been healthy for almost all of those 10 years. That's what healthy costs. The 1 procedure was $4,000 out of pocket after insurance. You put it on a payment plan. You're in year 3 of that payment plan. This is the line that has no equivalent in most other countries. It's worth sitting with that. Jordan pays roughly the same. So does everyone either of you knows. Nobody in that conversation has ever described it as a choice. There was 1 year you thought about dropping to the cheaper plan to save $80 a month. You did the math on what the deductible would be if anything happened. Then you stayed. $960 a year to avoid a risk you couldn't survive. That's not waste. But it is $63,000 that will never appear anywhere in your net worth. Insurance is the only major purchase where the best possible outcome is getting nothing back. Add it. $63,000 for the right to not be financially destroyed by an accident. Level 6. Interest and fees. $58,000. This is the first line that bought you absolutely nothing. Student loan interest, credit card interest, car loan interest, overdraft fees, late fees. Not the loans themselves. Just the cost of not having the money when you needed it. Student loan interest alone was $29,000 across the decade. You borrowed $41,000 for a degree. You've paid back $62,000 so far. You still owe $8,000 of the original amount. Overdraft fees were $2,100, $35 at a time. Every one of those happened in a week when your balance was already near zero. Which is the part that stings. It cost you the most on the days you had the least. $58,000 converted into nothing you can point at. There's a specific cruelty built into this line, and it's worth naming clearly. Someone with $3,000 sitting in savings pays none of this. Not $1. The entire $58,000 line exists because you never had a buffer. And you never had a buffer partly because this line kept taking it. That's not a metaphor. That's a loop, and it ran for 10 years without anyone noticing. No object, no experience, no asset, just the price of being short at the wrong moment. Level 7. Everything else. $44,000. Phone bills, internet, utilities, streaming, clothes, haircuts, gifts, birthdays, a wedding you flew to, a funeral you flew to, 2 phones you had to replace, $44,000 spread across roughly 4,000 separate transactions. The average transaction in this category was $11. $11 is not a decision. $11 is a Tuesday. Some of it was genuinely wasteful. Subscriptions you forgot for months at a time. That waste, honestly counted, was around $6,000 over 10 years. Real money. Worth fixing. Nowhere near the size of the hole we're trying to explain. The wedding cost you $1,100 between the flight, the hotel, and the gift. You would spend it again. That's the thing about this category. Most of it bought something real. The funeral cost $800. You'd have paid anything for that one. So be careful with this line. Not everything that leaves your account is a leak. Some of it is just the cost of having a life that other people are in. Add it. That's 7 lines. Let's see where the sheet stands. Level 8, the $71,000 nobody can find. 7 lines. $678,000 fully explained. You were missing $749, which leaves $71,000 that has no line on this sheet at all. You went back through the statements looking for it. All 10 years. There is no single withdrawal. No mistake, no fraud, nothing dramatic. $71,000 left your account in amounts too small to remember. $20 here, $40 there. $100 on a weekend you couldn't describe now if asked. That's roughly $19 a day. Every day. For 10 years. $19 a day is invisible. $71,000 is a house deposit. They are the same number. That is the entire lesson of this video. You told Jordan about the $71,000. He went quiet for a second. Then he said the thing you've thought about ever since. Mine's probably worse. He was probably right. Almost nobody has ever run this exercise on themselves. Add the line. $71,000. Spent on nothing you can name. You tried to reconstruct one single month of it, just to see if you could. Out of 61 transactions that month, you could account for 9 of them from memory. The other 52 were real. Real money, real days, real decisions you genuinely made. You just weren't storing any of it. Nobody stores it. That's not a memory failure. It's what happens when a decade of small decisions never gets written down anywhere. And with that line, the number finally closes. Level 9, what's actually left, $31,000. So here's what survived 10 years and $780,000. $9,000 in checking and savings combined, $18,000 in a retirement account you started 6 years late, $4,000 of equity in a car worth less every month, $31,000. That's the whole result. 4% of everything you earned. That's your retention rate on a decade of your life. If you had invested just the interest line instead of paying it, you'd have around $90,000 today. If you'd captured half of the invisible gap, another $50,000 on top of that. Same job, same salary, same apartment, same car, same 10 years. $140,000 of difference from 2 lines on a sheet of paper. And now that the sheet is finished, the useful question finally becomes obvious. Not where did it go? You know where it went now. All of it. You are 34 years old. You have 31 more working years if nothing goes wrong. At your current rate, you'll earn about $2.5 million in that time. At your current retention rate of 4%, you'll keep about $100,000 of it. The question is which of these 8 lines you could actually move. And it's not the ones people yell about. Taxes, rent, healthcare. You had almost no leverage on any of those 3. That's $414,000 of the total, more than half. Food and transportation you could bend, but not break. You still have to eat and get to work, which leaves 2 lines that were genuinely fully yours. Interest and the gap. $129,000. That's your actual battlefield, not 749. 129. That's a smaller number than the one you started this video afraid of. It's also a real one. Interest you attack by never being short at the wrong moment again. That's the emergency fund. The gap you attack by making $19 a day visible instead of invisible, not by cutting it to 0, just by knowing it exists at all. You did this exercise once and it took 4 hours. Most people never do it a single time, which is exactly why almost everyone spends a decade wondering where it all went. Jordan ran his own sheet 2 weeks later. It took him a full weekend. His gap was $94,000. He earned slightly less than you did. He didn't tell anyone else. He said it felt too embarrassing to say out loud, which is exactly how a problem this size stays invisible for an entire generation. Nobody compares sheets. Everybody compares cars. The money was never hiding. Nobody was ever looking. You didn't lose $749,000. You just never added it up. Thanks for watching all the way through. See you in the next one.